Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to this fifth episode of Inclusion Full Circle Dialogue. And today we have Antara ma'am, and I'm happy to have her today because we vibe a lot, we discuss a lot. So, welcome, ma'am, and thank you for saying yes to this discussion, this question answer session. And for a change, I would like you to in- introduce yourself. Who is Antara? How do you see yourself as a person, or how would you like to describe about yourself?
Thank you, Nidhi, first of all, for having me. I know we have done a lot of discussions. Mostly, we are yet to really work together, but it's always such a great joy speaking to you because, like you said, we vibe, our philosophies align. We identify the similar system gaps, which leads to very stimulating conversations. And this has been us over the years, right? Not like कल की बात है, ऐसा नहीं है. काफी साल हो गए. So yes, thank you so much for thinking of me. And now you have given me a very difficult job of introducing myself. It's a tricky one because where do I even start? Who am I? I am I used to be a lawyer once upon a time. I used to be an Indian Air Force officer, and I have been a certified ABA professional for many years now. I'm also Kabir's mother. Kabir is a soon to be 18-year-old autistic young man. And I think that kind of completes my identity because a lot of who I am today is shaped by Kabir to begin with. I am I know it sounds very cliched, but even then, I will say I'm very passionate about my work, not because it sounds cool, but because I literally, spend my waking hours noticing the system gaps that need to be bridged a long time ago. And we are in 2026 and we are still stuck with those system gaps. And I spend my waking and sleeping hours trying to redesign systems and policies, right? So literally 24/7, this is what I live for, Nidhi, and I will not change this for anything. I have had multiple careers, but I think I found my calling. So yes, I'm happy to be exactly where I am. I think I am where I need to be, and luckily I want to be. So yes, and the last 4 years working with just the older population has kind of brought a huge shift to my perspective. I started out with early intervention. That's a whole different world. But once you step into the world of the older population, the gaps start appearing almost every step of the way. They are far more glaring than what we see with the younger population. And that kind of compels you to think that what are we even doing? You know? So yes, I can go and talk about that for 5 days at a stretch, but I will not do that, Nidhi. So back to you, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I am kind of stuck with your one word calling. So it remind me of one line: if it is keep on calling you, then it is your calling.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, you are right.
Absolutely. लोग पूछते हैं कि तुम तो वर्दी पहनती थी फौज में, तुमने काम किया इतने मेहनत से, तुमने वर्दी कमाई, डोंट यू मिस इट? वर्दी पहनना, डोंट यू मिस इट? एंड आई अग्री, बहुत मेहनत किया निधि, खून पसीना बहाया लिटरली। एक प्रेसिडेंट्स का कमीशन, कितनी इज्जत होती है उसमें, लोग आपको सल्यूट करते हैं, आप एक वर्दी पहनते हैं जो आपने कमाई है। आई बट मुझे ना कभी वो दुख नहीं होता कि मैंने वो वर्दी उतार दी, बिकॉज दिस what I have been doing for almost 15 years now has been so gratifying that I don't get a chance to miss my old life anymore. I think that's the safest way to put it. So मुझे कभी सोचने का भी मौका नहीं मिला that do I really miss that life or not. I'm very happy where I am. I love my work.
That actually makes sense to me because a warrior is warrior without a dress or with a dress. Warrior is warrior.
वो तो पता नहीं, बट वही है ना, व्हेन यू हैव सो मच टू डू, वेयर इज द टाइम निधि कि बैठ के आप सोचो, अरे वो तो जमाना था, हम तो वर्दी पहनते थे, लोग तो सल्यूट करते थे। वो वक्त ही नहीं है ना सोचने का बैठ के, आप जो जिसके बारे में आप सोच ही नहीं सकते, उसको आप कैसे मिस करेंगे? बिकॉज दिस लाइफ, कबीर से शुरू करके कबीर की मदर, मैंने शुरू किया जब इस मेरा थर्ड करियर जब मैंने चलना शुरू किया, आई वॉज जस्ट कबीज मदर, एंड दैट इज अ फुल टाइम जॉब। धीरे धीरे
Yeah.
ट्रांजिशन हुआ, बट फुर्सत किसको होती है? और जब जब आपको थोड़ी फुर्सत मिलती है, तब आप देखते हो चारों तरफ इतना काम करना बाकी है कि आप फिर, होता ही नहीं है यार, यू गो बैक एंड यू स्टार्ट थिंकिंग अबाउट अनदर लाइफ दैट यूज्ड टू बी। सो या, आई मीन, माय कॉलिंग, आई विल नॉट ट्रेड दिस फॉर एनीथिंग एल्स दैट आई हैव डन इन माय लाइफ, और people think I can do. I won't. I'm very happy.
So let's start with our question answer round, and it is a kind of rapid fire.
Ooh, I
So
love rapid fires. Let's go. Let's go.
we'll move quickly.
Sure.
Inclusion in one word.
Belonging.
Lawyer, BCA, BA, or educator. Which identity has shaped you the most?
Okay, so who I am today, before any of these, being a lawyer, being an Air Force officer, being a BCABA, being a social entrepreneur, before any of these had a chance to shape me, I think autism shaped me before any of these could. So what you see me today as is a function of autism, and I think the best of all these worlds that have taught me. Air Force taught me discipline, being a lawyer taught me critical thinking and being focused and analytical thinking and all of those things, very logical. Being a BCAB, of course, gave me the tools to convert my thoughts into action. And being a social entrepreneur kind of keeps me going because I think there's a lot of work to be done. Yeah.
So, as you described, your identity, who you are today, is shaped by lot many things, and core is the autism. So, it will be a difficult question, but I will put it forward. What was the moment that made inclusion your life's work?
Nidhi, if I'm being honest, there was no defining moment. It was a series of activities that kept accumulating and which kind of led me to where I am today. I cannot look back and say, this was my light bulb moment or this was my eureka moment. There was no apple falling on Newton's head and suddenly, discovering gravity. नहीं, ऐसा dramatic कुछ भी नहीं था निधि. I told you I started out as Kabir's mother, और कबीर की मदर होते होते जब दिखा धीरे धीरे कि सिस्टम्स में ये कमी है, ये कमी है, ये कमी है, अच्छा ये भी हो सकता है, अच्छा ये भी कर सकते हैं, अच्छा इसको ऐसे भी कर सकते हैं, दैट इज व्हेन आई स्टडीड, आई गॉट सर्टिफाइड एज अ प्रोफेशनल। उसके पहले तो ऑब्वियसली पेरेंट ट्रेनिंग्स वगैरह हम कोशिश करते ही हैं, बट एज अ फुल डिसिप्लिन उस उम्र में एक छोटे बच्चे के साथ पढ़ाई करना, that happened because it was a cumulative effect of what I was observing as a parent and from somebody who was just a parent standing outside of the system. So I decided to get in. That was it.
One myth about autism that you wish would disappear forever.
My God, I can talk about this for 5 days, but you want me to pick one? Okay. Um, Autistic people lack empathy. Not true. It's a big myth. Autistic people don't lack empathy. However, they can communicate that empathy in a way which is different from how a neurotypical person does or perceives. So the difference in communication is often perceived as a lack of empathy, which I think is very unfair.
It is unfair because I don't think we as a neurotypical people are doing anything wrong. We use this brain just to define everything, design everything, and we expect everyone to fall into that definition.
Exactly. Exactly. So like I said, I can talk. This is one of my pet peeves, autism myths, and मैं 5 दिन बिना रुके इसके बारे में बोल सकती हूँ निधि.
I know. Next one is compliance or connection.
Connection. Connection before compliance.
What is one thing every preschool gets wrong about inclusion?
That admitting a child with disability is inclusion.
Right. Early intervention starts with
Listening.
behavior is communication. Is it true or oversimplified.
True. Absolutely true. Do you want me to also explain why I'm saying what I'm saying?
If you would like to, you
Oh,
can
I
go
would,
ahead.
I would absolutely love to. So, why I said behavior is communication, it's not oversimplified. I think, if anything, it's very underrated and less understood. Behavior is definitely communication. The only thing that gets most people is that they think just because a behavior doesn't look a certain way. So let's, for ease of understanding, let's call them desirable behaviors or socially acceptable behaviors, and undesirable or socially unacceptable behaviors, or self-injurious and other harmful behaviors. So let's make two baskets. Now, say for example, polite words is socially acceptable, right? We expect people to say please, thank you, sorry, things like that. Now, if somebody doesn't say that and instead they are what is perceived as tantruming, the tantrum is still serving a purpose for the person who is tantruming. To you, to me, or to anyone else standing there, it may look very wrong, very odd, and they can get judgmental about it all they want. Does not change the fact that the person who is seen tantruming is has resorted to that tantrum because they are trying to tell you something. So
Right.
every behavior serves a function for the person who's emitting that behavior, whether it looks okay or not, whether it is okay or not, whether it is understood or not.
Right. And I usually correlate this phrase behavior is communication with starting 1 year after birth, because during that time no verbal communication is there, only
Hmm.
behavior is there, and that's how the needs being communicated to the mother or the caregiver around the child. So
Hmm.
for me also behavior is truly stands as a communication when verbal communication is not there.
Right. I'm glad we see it the same way.
One legal right every parent of child with disability should know.
Right to education without discrimination. But even before I get to the specific rights, I think a major mindset shift needs to happen in parents, which is that rights are your legal entitlement. They are not
Right.
charity. I think this is the first shift that parents need to understand, acknowledge, and hold on to before we even tell parents that one, two, three, four, five, these are the rights your child with disabilities has.
Right. Inclusion without trained teachers. Is it inclusion?
It can be a starting point, but it cannot be a sustainable design.
Right. Because right now we are facing the challenge with mindset itself. So
Hmm.
without training, it can be a starting point, as you said, but rightly, it won't sustain for long without a training.
Yes, because see, without training, if you're starting, that means either your school has mandated that you work with a child with disabilities, or you are the kind of person who thinks, you know what, I'm going to try it anyway. Either way, without the right skills, how long and how far do you think you can really make a difference in the child's life? How are you going to teach them skills in a way that the child needs to be taught? How are you going to make sure the skill acquisition is real and lasting? How are you going to do all of that without skills? It's like sending you on a battle without any ammunition or weapon, right? Not fair to either
Right.
party, neither the teacher nor the child. So, yeah, it can be a starting place, but it is not a sustainable plan and not a replacement for trained people.
What is more important, diagnosis, environment, or relationship?
Environment. And I say this because, see, diagnosis tells you X, Y, Z. Okay, autism hai, global developmental delay hai, intellectual disability hai, learning disability hai. Relationships, are you talking about personal relationships like parent child, teacher student, those kind of relationships?
teacher and child relationship.
Right. So I may be very fond of my child. I may know this child has learning disabilities, but see, so the diagnosis tells me this student has learning disability. Okay. Now, my relationship is with this student who has learning disability, but without altering the environment. How am I going to do anything for this student with learning disability to make sure that they actually learn something and go out of my classroom? So, environment.
Right. One behavior adults should change before expecting children to change.
My God, I have so much to say about this. Um, the need for compliance. We as adults need to let go of our constant need for compliance because compliance without understanding the function of the behavior that we are objecting to and forcing somebody to be compliant actually doesn't help them grow much, so that is something I think we definitely need to change as adults. I'm not saying don't work on compliance. I'm saying compliance can't be your starting point. It should come as a
Right.
logical progression of your relationship or your understanding of your child, because now your child feels safe to be and learn and do things that they need to do. For that, you have to first let go of your need for compliance from the word go. So that can't be the starting point.
Right. If you could rewrite one school policy tomorrow, what would it be?
Okay, this is not fair, Nidhi. You're giving me only one to talk about. All right. One policy. Children with special needs should not be spending more than a certain percentage of their duration at school isolated in a resource room. Number one. Continuing from that, resource rooms need to be uh, managed and run by qualified people so that resource room doesn't become a parking space and actually, leads to some learning for the child there. Yeah.
So, if I got it right, you mean to say that uh, children should not be allowed in the resources room after a certain amount of time, right?
Yes. So that, see, again, the resource room, okay, let me rephrase that. Maybe one policy I would say is that resource room should not become synonymous with parking space.
But now here I'm confused. If we are talking in terms of resource room, then it isn't it integration rather than inclusion?
It's segregation to begin with, because that's what, and I'm saying this not based on some random philosophy in my head. I am saying this after seeing many, many, many schools and talking to parents day in and day out. So, what has happened is the resource rooms were created with a very clear purpose. Now, on the ground, resource schools have become this place where you put a child with some diagnosis because they are disrupting the class. So, resource rooms have become a parking space for children who are disrupting the class. I think there needs to be a big policy change around that because, like I said earlier, in answer to one of your questions, that admitting a child with disability is not inclusion. Similarly, making a child spend their time in a resource room because they are disrupting the classroom is not inclusion. That's segregation, that's exclusion. Unless you use resource rooms are very potent tools, by the way. They hold a lot of potential if used correctly. So there is a very good chance that if you use resource rooms the way they are meant to work for the child, right? Not just to provide a safe space to park the child so the class can carry on and the syllabus can be completed. No. If you use resource rooms the way they are meant to be used for every individual child, the child will be able to come back into the main classroom. Why is that not happening? So
Right.
that's where I think a huge policy change is needed.
What is a bigger barrier? Lack of resources or lack of mindset?
Lack of mindset. Because when you don't have the right mindset, even the existing resources can't be used, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One assessment mistake you see repeatedly.
Assessment tools being used as a means to make a list of the child's deficits and not their strengths.
It is quite surprising for me to hear that because the more and more I'm interacting with the people who have spent a decade in this field, they all are coming up with the same statement now. They are not no more fan of assessments anymore.
See, so that's what I feel, when you start seeing the system gaps, you and I are probably using the same assessment tool. What I see is, what is this person coming with? What are their inherent strengths? And as well as, so this is happening in tandem. I am making a list. I'm observing, I'm assessing them for their strengths. I'm also assessing them for their gaps and limitations that they have. Then I use my assessment to tell me, how do I use the strengths to bridge this gap that they have because of the limitations. Some of them may not be readily bridged. Some of them may need us to go back and work on prerequisite skills, and that's okay, as long as we also have and kind of make the list of strengths our starting point to address the list of deficits.
Right. And I think that becomes more inclusive rather than labeling, because that's how
Yes.
we see every child in the class. We talk about the strength first.
Isn't that how people, even in the corporate, are taught to give feedbacks? Say something positive first. If there is nothing, invent a very neutral, generic positive. If you want to run a whole list of negatives to your employee or subordinate, that's a general rule. And here it's even more impactful, Nidhi, because we are not talking about an employee being unhappy and quitting their job or feeling wronged and quitting their job. We are talking probably about parents who either have just received a diagnosis and they have no idea what's going on. If you hand them a list of pure deficits, does anybody even stop and think what it does to the parent there? I have been there. I know what it does to a parent. I speak to parents very often. Parents of children just diagnosed, parents of children who have been long diagnosed, parents who got their children a skill assessment for some reason. Handing out a list of deficits is important because it tells the professional the areas they need to focus on. But if you're telling them only the deficits they need to focus on without telling them the skill repertoire, the existing skill repertoire, the strengths that exist in the child's repertoire already, which can and should be used to bridge those deficits, then your assessment is half. It's incomplete. So we need to talk about both. We can't just focus on a list of deficits. That's a very problematic trend.
Right. Next one is reward system or reinforcement. Is it helpful or harmful?
It can be extremely helpful if used correctly. Rewards need to be age appropriate, socially valid, planned, and faded over a period of time to something
Right.
more naturally occurring, to something more socially valid, to something that a parent doesn't need to carry with them all the time. So, for example, something I hear very commonly as a critique of ABA, that, oh, ABA makes children robot like because they are giving them treats or chips or candy every 2 minutes. No, we don't do that. B, if we do that, then that's probably because the child is not motivated for anything else. So the chips or the candy or a toy or tickles, if it's a very young child and consents to being tickled or anything, they become a starting point. Now, the same child, when they are 10, are we still using the same reinforcer or reward that we were using when they were 2? Then that becomes a problem, and that's not because rewards are inherently problematic. That's because they've not used they're not being used the correct way. So rewards or reinforcement inherently are neither bad nor good. Depends completely on how they are used.
Right. What makes a child feel that they truly belong?
When a child feels understood. So you may have a nonverbal child. You may have a child whose vocals are just emerging. You may have a child with aphasia where they don't, the articulation is not very clear. You may have somebody who just doesn't see speaking as a very engaging activity. So many reasons. So my question is, are you seeing the child? Are you understanding the child? Is the child coming in knowing that, you know what, people understand me? I'm okay, I'm safe here. My nervous system can rest. So I think that's the crux of the matter.
Right. Inclusion is impossible without.
Inclusion is impossible without dignity. And I say this because I know dignity is a big, broad, kind of vague term. You can't say 5 kilos of dignity or 35 centimeters of dignity. It's not measurable, it's not tangible, which makes it very difficult. But let's think of it this way, that would Antara like to be spoken of in a certain way when she's not present or when she can't speak for herself? Is that the test we are holding ourselves to every time we talk about a person with disability? Basic, basic, right? Why are we
Yeah,
not
it
doing
can be
that?
a starting point, as you said.
Yes, absolutely. So dignity has to be the starting point. There is no inclusion without dignity. The moment you start looking at inclusion as a charity or a favor, you're just ruining the concept of dignity for that person. You're dehumanizing that person. How is it dignified?
Yeah,
If you constantly make me the object of charity, you're stripping me of my basic dignity. That is my fundamental human right as a human being,
right.
right? So, yeah, I think inclusion is incomplete or not impossible without dignity.
Parents need more hope, information, or support.
Ecosystems.
Okay.
I will add a fourth one, ecosystems. Uh, Hope, definitely. It gets very lonely, it gets tiring, it gets overwhelming. And I've seen parents break down, and unfortunately, in all these years, I've seen so many parents take the extreme step. And every time I go back to thinking, what pushed this parent so far, so hard that they just couldn't hold on to anymore. So, hope, definitely. But hope without action won't take you very far, will it? An action without information doesn't go far. So they are all kind of linked to each other, Nidhi, and that is where I think an ecosystem needs to come up where we have a good measure of all of this. When a parent is overwhelmed, they feel safe enough to say, you know what, I just want to run away from this without the fear of shame, guilt, or judgment,
Mhm.
right? When and it's okay to just tell them, you know what, I have those days too. Now we can't run away, come, let's have chai or whatever. I'm not diminishing their pain. I'm saying sometimes all a person needs in that bleak moment is to have somebody to talk to. We don't even have that in our community. Many mothers are there who are so lonely, so alone, so tired, and they have zero help. So hope, definitely, but also information and action.
Here, I would like to add one thing is that I understood this gap long ago, and I was quite determined to come up with something about this because you can see the news all over the places about those parents who are catering for children long many years and how
Yes.
they ended their own life. So that's why I've created something on a daily basis where mothers especially can check in. It is called Heart Led Circles for Mothers. And another program I've made is recentering in emotions of special needs parents.
Wow.
So I'm hoping it will start soon and it will reach to more and more parents. I'm especially focused on mothers because in Indian context, I find it true that mothers are the gap between a bridge gap between a child and the entire family. Mother
Yes.
is the bridge gap between a child
And
and the society
not
and
just
the
in
school.
India, Nidhi. I see this globally that mothers end up being the primary caregivers. And
Yeah.
primary caregiving is work, real, exhausting,
It's
brutal
depleting
work.
without a support system. It is
Yes.
depleting.
So I wish when I was a young mother to a younger Kabir, I wish I had your support system to fall back on, you know. But I'm glad the mums have it today. So yeah, please do it and let me know if I can be of any use. Because it's hard, Nithi. It's very hard. And some days you just need to know that you're not doing this alone. That's it. कई बार ना उतना ही जरूरी होता है when you're about to cross the line when you're on the edge वो इतना बोलते हैं ना डूबते को तिनके का सहारा वो तिनके का सहारा भी नहीं मिलता है यार लोगों को that's very
नहीं
sad no so
नहीं
yes
मिलता.
thank you for doing this God knows we need this
Uh, One skill every preschool teacher should master before classroom management.
it has to be a skill not a philosophy right
Yeah, skill.
okay making accommodations for your children with diverse needs
Okay. What is one thing behavior science gets right that education often misses?
Okay, that's a very interesting one. What is one thing behavior science gets? Okay, so behavior science says, I think our focus always remains that change the environment before expecting the child to change. That is, I think, a big difference between the two.
Right.
Yeah, before we blame the child, we go back and see what's happening in the environment that is causing the child to behave a certain way. Yeah.
Mhm. What is one thing education gets right that behavior science sometimes misses?
Okay, at the risk of sounding very biased, I'm still going to say this. See, behavior science and education, these to me are not competing disciplines. I think good education should be informed by behavior science because behavior science is not an alternative to education. It is a science of learning, which I think education has to use more.
Okay.
Am
Yes.
I making sense?
Yeah, sure. You are making sense.
Uh,
Because education is just about, in one line, if I would say, education is about memorizing, and behavior informs you about the human nature, human tendency, human needs.
right.
So
Uh,
when the needs are in the place, then only anyone can memorize which is
yes.
in front of them.
Yes. Absolutely. Hmm.
Should inclusion ever be optional?
No. Inclusion should be a way of life.
I hope people start absorbing this one fact.
Well,
You
we'll
come from
keep,
both.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I said we'll keep reminding them as often as we need to. Hopefully, somebody will get it right. Hanji.
You come from both a legal and behavior background.
Hmm.
How can policy and practice work together instead of existing in separate worlds?
So, policy and practice are I think they should not be mutually exclusive. They have to work in tandem, they have to work together to see the desired outcome. So while policy tells us what must happen, practice determines whether it actually happens, right?
Mhm.
So one does not void the other. In fact, the contrary. Policy without practice is meaningless. Practice without policy is crazy, right? There is no governance, there is no uniformity, there's no equity, there's nothing happening there. So both are needed and both have to be happening together simultaneously. One has to draw from the other and one has to give constantly give feedback to the other. That's how it should work.
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
That's how I agree to it, whatever you said. They should work parallelly and intertwined way.
Hmm.
But the thing is that that is a theory part. That is a logical part which you and me are discussing. When it comes to specifically inclusion, we are seeing policies in the place, but they are still lacking in the practice.
Correct. So that's what I said. See, policy tells us what must happen, right?
Right,
Practice determines whether it is actually happening or not. So we are not as much lacking in policy as we are in practice. So a better question for us, which will actually probably lead us to some outcome, is how do we enforce the policies that already exist before we ask for more policies?
right.
And how do we do that? How do you wake up a society and say, hello, wake up? Here, this is what you're supposed to do. ये 5 पन्ने में लिखा है. जाइए कीजिए. That's why I said the shift of mindset is very important, Nidhi.
Yes, yes.
I wish I could just say कि दो paracetamol लो 3 चम्मच शहद पियो हल्दी दूध पियो and everything will automatically work out. नहीं होता है ना.
नहीं हो रहा, नहीं हो रहा
You know
वो
it better than me. So, yeah, we are not lacking as much in policy as we are in practice. I agree. I completely agree.
If you had one message for every school leader in India about inclusion, what would it be?
Um, Interesting. I think I would say something like, don't ask whether a child belongs in your school. Ask whether your school belongs to every child. Yes, I think that's what I would like to tell them.
So now let's do some imagination work. You and me
Okay.
are you and me are in 2035.
Hmm.
So what would make you to say that India has truly become inclusive?
Wow. Okay. I can retire. Wonderful. Um, I think I will say we have become truly inclusive if I wake up one day in 2035 or whenever that is, and I see that every child belongs because they no longer have to earn their belonging, they no longer have to earn their place, Nidhi. Because belonging and inclusion and dignity have become the default setting. I think I will say that day that we have become truly inclusive.
When the basics are in the place, then only we can start thinking about it.
Yes. Because belonging is a human need, right? It's not a reward. Nobody should have to earn it. Correct? It should
Yes, like
be our default setting.
if a child is born, whether it we get it later that whether the child is neurotypical or neurodivergent. But when the child is born, it is default that one day he or she will go to the school. They don't earn it. So in a
Yes,
same
exactly my point. So belonging shouldn't have to be earned. That is why we have villages. That is why we have communities. That is why we have families and societies. Because as social mammals, we have that innate need for belonging. Why should why anybody else have to earn that belonging, which is an innate human need, just because they have a diagnosis? So I think, yeah, that is a true test of inclusion. That is belonging our default setting. Or are people still having to earn their spot?
So I think you have pointed out one of the basic yet most important indicator of an inclusion setup.
Mm-hmm.
Are they accepting children truly? Are they ensuring the participation, belonging is there or not? I think these are the very basic step to say for a school that we are inclusive.
Correct. Yep.
Every child belongs because we we discussed it, but still
Every child belongs because I think I'll just go back to what I said. Every child belongs because belonging is an innate human need and not a reward that should be earned.
Right.
Yeah.
If you could ask every viewer one question, what would it be?
Mm, okay. I think my first question would be to any viewer who's watching now or who watches this later. Who is missing from your table and why?
Okay. Which book, person, or experience influenced your philosophy for inclusion?
Ah, I can't name one person, I can't name one book. Definitely one quote I had read long back, right after some time Kabir was diagnosed, was by Dr. Stephen Shore. And his quote read, if you have met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism. I let that guide me and carry me forever. Even now, I fall back on that. Now it's become my default setting, but I always tell this to people that there is no copy paste or one size fits all. So, yeah, barring that quote, which is very dear to me and which is actually a guiding philosophy for me, I think it's every child, starting with my own, that I've worked with, the families that I've interacted with, who have taught me everything I know, one way or another, who's constantly shaped me, constantly forced me to sit with the discomfort, ask the uncomfortable questions, and then solve for it. So I can't attribute it to one person, but I think I'm a product of every person that has crossed paths with me. Yeah.
What does inclusion full circle mean to you?
Mm, okay, I would say inclusion full circle. I will keep it very objective, as in, kind of finite terms, nothing big. I think to me, it means that inclusion doesn't end with admission or graduation or employment. To me, it means creating a society where every person can learn, contribute, belong, and continue to belong for the rest of their lives. I think that is what it means to me because it is no longer a program or an initiative. I think it becomes the way a community lives and thrives and grows with everybody as part of it. Yeah,
Right. Because ultimately that's how the circle of life itself is. One
absolutely.
child
Absolutely.
born, they get to
Yes,
the school, university, college, employment, and then they continue to live the life. That's how the life.
correct. And that's exactly how it should be, no, Nidhi. We shouldn't have to constantly keep earning ourselves a seat at the table. The seat should be there. If it's not there, then that tells us we need to make one. But we can't keep asking the person to, keep earning that for the rest of their lives. So, yeah, I think inclusion full circle to me means the whole community where everybody just belongs and belongingness is the default setting. It's a way of life. It's how everybody lives and grows together. Yeah.
Okay. So with this, we have concluded our discussion wala questions. Now we
Mhm.
come to the quick ones.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Always coffee.
Books or podcast?
Podcast these days.
Okay. Structure or flexibility?
Flexibility within structure.
Mm-hmm. Data or intuition?
Data.
Policy or practice?
Both.
One word for parents.
Partners.
One word for teachers.
Catalysts.
One word for children.
Possibility.
One word for hope.
Action.
So here we concluded our inclusion full circle dialogue with you, and I'm very glad that we had this wonderful discussion. And what one thing I genuinely appreciate is that there is so much authenticity in the discussion. We can have uncomfortable questions, uncomfortable reality to put out there, which probably nobody wants to talk about or hear about. But it's okay for me. And that's the whole purpose I'm doing this inclusion full circle dialogue so that people can be aware
Otherwise, what's
about
the
the
point, Nidhi? If we keep putting more paint on a rosy picture, क्या फायदा होने वाला है? वो सफेद दीवार को आप पुट्टी लगाए जा रहे हैं, लगाए जा रहे हैं, लगाए जा रहे हैं, इधर बाजू में दरारें पड़ के वो टूट रही है दीवार. Correct? So we need to learn to sit with our discomforts. We need to be absolutely okay with asking very, very uncomfortable questions. And we need to help each other have those difficult conversations, Nidhi. I think that's essential for growth.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for contributing to that uncomfortable discussion and saying yes to it.
Oh, today was very polite, by the way. Okay, we can do much more uncomfortable.
Right. We'll plan for that in another conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nidhi. Thank you for doing this. Not just for having me, but thank you for doing this. I know how much resource it takes from a person to do something like this. So thank you. I live in complete awe of you all the time. More power
Um,
to you. More
thank
power
you.
to you. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for a
thank
wonderful
you.
evening. I actually had fun doing this. I've had a very busy last few months, year actually, and last few days have been very, very busy. I was so sleepy and tired, but now I feel like, okay, और क्या काम है दो और चलो काम करते हैं. So thank you for that. See, this is the power of good conversation, meaningful and stimulating conversation. वो ना चाय का काम करती है, कॉफी का काम करती है ना, दिमाग में ऐसे ऐसे लाइट बल्ब जलते हैं. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट एंड आई मीन इट. आई एक्चुअली मीन इट. मैं अभी बैठ के अभी प्रपोजल्स लिखने वाली हूँ, रुको. All right, नहीं नहीं, genuinely I have to do some programs, so maybe I'll just sit and do it. So thank you.
Thank you.